beautiful one, my soul must.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Christ Church First Service. It is good to see everyone here this morning. Hope you're happy to be with us today. We are, as you know, studying through the Gospel of John, and we are in John chapter 21. Now, this has not been an exhaustive study of the Gospel of John. It has been a study in which we have taken selected passages of Scripture and talked about the love of God as seen from the apostle of love, John himself. This morning we are in John 21, verse 15 through 22. And it is actually part two of a sermon that we started last week entitled, The Power of Love. The Power of Love. Just a quick context here. This is now the third time Jesus has appeared to Peter and the other disciples or apostles. You might remember Peter had decided he was going to go back to fishing, and he did. He fished all night. This was a familiar scene. He fished all night and caught no fish. Jesus shows up on the shoreline and yells out to them, "Have you caught anything?" No, they hadn't caught anything. And he says, "Cast your net on this side of the boat." And when they did, they caught a large amount. The disciple whom Jesus loved recognized that it was Jesus, and he said, "It's the Lord." Peter jumps into the water. He doesn't even wait to bring the fish in. He doesn't care about the fish. He just hears that it's the Lord. And so he jumps into the water, swims to the shore, gets there, and Jesus has made breakfast for them. He has fish prepared. He has some bread for them. And this is the scene here in John 21, beginning in verse 15. So when they had eaten breakfast, they being the apostles, the disciples, Jesus said to Simon, he said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of Jonah," or son of John, "do you love me more than these?" He, that is Peter, said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Then Jesus said to him, feed my sheep," or my lambs. He said again to him a second time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" And he said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him a third time, now this is Jesus, he said to Simon Peter a third time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him a third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know all things." Say that with me. Lord, you know all things. We really need that to sink in this morning, that God knows all things about us. And that's a good thing that he knows all things about us. He says, "You know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Most assuredly," verse 18, "I say to you, when you were younger, you girded yourself and you walked where you wished. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish." Then John interprets this for us, and he says, "This he spoke, signifying by what death he would glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said to him, 'Follow me.' Then Peter, turning around, saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following, who also had leaned on his breast at supper and said, 'Lord, who is the one who betrays you?' Peter, seeing him," verse 21, "said to Jesus, 'But Lord, what about this guy? What about this man?' And Jesus said to him, 'If I will that he remain till I come, what is that to you? You follow me.'" Let's pray. Father God, today as Peter heard the call, we hear the call. The call is asking us, do we love Jesus? If we love Jesus, do we show our love for Jesus by a life that follows him? Lord, today we want to be those people who are not just hearers of your word, but that we are doers of your word also. God, today we pray by the power of your Holy Spirit that you would convict us by your word, that you would transform us by your power, and that, God, you would indeed use us in ministry so that we can grow your kingdom. God, I thank you for those who are here. I thank you that they love you, that they care about you, that they've come this morning wanting to study your holy word, wanting to worship you in song and praise, and God, they've wanted to build and to edify each other who are here. Lord, based upon those desires and their wants, I pray, God, that you would bless them, that you would bless us, that you would bless us by transforming us into the image of Jesus. God, we want to be like you. The only way that we can serve you and be pleasing to you is if you transform us and change us into your image. And so we ask for that today. God, fill us with your love so that we can be loving to others. We need you, Lord. We don't want to take a step without you. We ask for your blessing today. For we pray it all in the name that is above every name, the name of Jesus our Lord. And let the church say,
Amen. These next couple of songs are songs that we sang in the old building when Kelly and my family actually first came to Christ Church, and so they always have a lot of meaning to me. So I hope that you'll sing out with us. seated, our next song will lead us into our communion this morning. And it really is about coming to Jesus and looking to him for everything. As Doug said, God already knows it all.
Behind, come to the well.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We are glad you are here and part of our assembly this morning. When I was in school a long time ago, our school was both academic and that we studied all the scriptures and learned a whole lot about things that we knew very little about at that time. And we also did a lot of practical things. In that area of the world, I knocked a lot of doors in Oklahoma and Louisiana and Texas and various towns where we held mission works. Probably hundreds. I don't know. But we had a common question that we often asked as we got to talking to people and as we were able to see that they wanted to talk to us. We often asked them if they left this world today, do they know whether or not they'd be with God? It was a question that opened up a lot of doors. It was a question that really was designed to elicit from them the very idea that they can know. That they don't have to live in doubt and confusion. And I think most people are in doubt and confusion. The question comes from 1 John 5:13. When I studied the book of 1 John for the first time, I was intrigued by the book because when you stop and think about it, the book of 1 John really describes who we are. We are a people who have wonderful fellowship with one another. We are a people who believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And so when John gets to the end of his book, writing to a people who had been told something very different, he says to them, "These things have I written unto you." Those of you who believe, that you may know that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Now, the reality of knowing that is that we have a confidence in God, that we have a hope. See, confidence is not in me. It's in Him. And as we knock doors, most people would express that doubt about themselves. But I'm not that great a person, and I do a lot of things that are wrong, and on and on and on the list would go as they concentrate on themselves. And our job was to get them to see not themselves, but to see Christ. This is who He is, and this is what He has done. And my confidence in my own salvation is not because of me. It is because of Him. Not arrogance. I thought about that as I thought about the Lord's Supper today because it really expresses the connection to God, doesn't it? He instituted it, Jesus did, at that Last Supper, and He did it for a reason. He did it so that we can have that constant, weekly, collective recognition of what He has done. The bread representing His body and the little bit of juice representing the blood that He shed. It's all about Him. I want you to know something, that even if you don't live with that confidence, if you're a child of God, you still have that hope. You just miss out on one of the greatest benefits God has ever given us. And that is absolute and total confidence in what He did. I stand before you today with that hope, not because of me, but because of Him. Let's bow together. Father, we love You and thank You and praise You for so much in life. And Father, I am so grateful today that John wrote what he wrote, as well as the other writers. They've given us confidence, Father. Confidence that You're a God who keeps His promises. Confident that You're a God who has sent Your Son into the world to die on our behalf so that we can live in hope. Confident, Father, that You are who You are. And we thank You for it. We love you, Lord, and we are grateful. And as we take this supper today, may we be reminded, Father, that this has never been about what we have done. It has always been about what you have done. Thank you for Jesus. And it's through him we pray. Amen. As we continue on, would you bow with me in a word of prayer as we give? Father, I believe that the use of what you have given us really expresses our hearts as much as anything I can think of. I believe, Father, that our giving expresses who we are and what we believe with regard to you. And Father, I thank you for what you have blessed each of us with. We're grateful, Father, to have the opportunities to give not only here but in other places as we share the most important message this world has ever heard. Help us always, Father, to be generous in our hearts and in our minds. And to give knowing, Father, that everything we own belongs to you. Thank you for this, Father. And it's through Jesus I pray. Amen.
Yeah. I can hardly listen to that song without singing to that song. How many of you feel the same way? What a great and powerful song. This morning we are blessed. We have Brad with us from the Gideons. I have to tell you personally, I have been blessed time and time again by the Gideons and by their ministry. Most of you know the handing out of scriptures that they do, but they do a lot of work behind the scenes that you don't realize as well. And that work with congregations and actually shepherding and pastoring the pastors of those congregations in ways as well. I know there has not been a time that I haven't talked with Dick Dissip, and he's not wanted to pray for me and conscious of my life and the things that are going on in this ministry. And the Gideons asked, what is it that we can pray for? What can we be doing? And I was just blessed to be at their dinner this last week, and they just treat us very, very good. And so, without any further ado, Brad is here to share with us. Let's warmly welcome him this morning. Make sure you have a mic here, brother. You got it. You're good.
Darla put a gun to her head and pulled it. She said her life didn't start hopeless.
Maybe that mic isn't going to work. Let's see what we got here, Brad. I'm apologizing. Okay. Both of them are bad? All right. Thank you, brother. Technical things.
She was raised by two loving, hardworking parents, but Darla wasn't taken to church. She didn't know anything about God, and she didn't know that she was a sinner who needed a Savior. Well, Darla began to drink and take drugs at an early age. One day when she was in college, there was a Gideon handing out testaments, and Darla received her first copy of God's Word. She said she fully intended just to put it in a drawer or throw it away, but she put it in a drawer and forgot about it. Eventually, it got to where Darla was consuming $200 worth of drugs every day. Well, one night as she looked in the mirror, she thought about the shame she brought upon herself and her family, and she remembered that gun. This time she was going to pull the trigger till it fired. Well, she went to the nightstand where she kept the gun. She reached in, but when her hand came out, it was holding that testament she'd put there years before. Darla opened it up and began to read it, and Darla gave her life to the Lord. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to share this testimony this morning and for your past offerings, for it may have been your offering that purchased that testament that Darla received. You see, it's through your getting offerings that people receive God's Word so they can come to a saving knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Where are these people? Where do the Scriptures go? Well, many go right here in Wood County. We put Bibles and Testaments in the local schools, Bowling Green State University, the motels, doctors and dentist's office, and even the county fair. But I'm happy to say that we are also in 200 countries. How can you help spread God's Word? Well, you already have through your past offerings. But today you have a chance to give to the Gideons. There's a basket in the entrance that you can give to the Gideons. And everything you give to the Gideons goes 100% for scriptures and scripture distribution. All of the operating costs of the Gideons comes out of our own membership dues. And also in the entrance, we have a memorial Bible rack, and you can purchase Bibles in memory of lost friends or loved ones. There's also in recognition cards and thinking of you cards. One last testimony I'd like to share this morning is about a man I know personally. His name is Dana, and Dana was a part-time farmer and a part-time pastor. And one day he told his wife that he didn't love her anymore and that he was leaving, and Dana left his wife and his family. Well, one night when Dana was in a motel room, there was a Gideon Place Bible on the table. Dana picked it up, and he happened to open it up to the book of Malachi, chapter 2, and he started to read. And in the book of Malachi, chapter 2, God says that marriage is a covenant and that he hates divorce. Dana didn't like what he read. He flipped through the pages, once again read that same passage. A third time he flipped through the pages, and there was that same passage. In anger, he threw the Bible back up on the table. He pulled the covers over his head, and Dana wished that he was dead. Well, God changed Dana's heart that night, and I'm happy to say that they have now been married over 50 years and have a marriage ministry. An amazing thing how God works is that I told you he read that passage 3 different places in this Bible. It's only there one time. In closing, your support of the Gideon Ministry makes it possible to give to someone something more precious than gold. Think about that. You have the opportunity to give to someone something more precious than gold, and that's a copy of God's Word. Matthew 16:26 states, "For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and yet loses his soul?" And I can promise you that your support of the Gideons will make a difference, an eternal difference in the lives of many. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. The power of love. Last week we started off by talking about the power of love, and we actually used the song by Huey Lewis and the News. How many of you remember that song? The Power of Love. We went through that and talked about it. Love is a powerful motivator in the world in which we live. Even a humanly based love is powerful. It's motivating. We know those who have loved their country to the point of death. They've served in the armed forces, and I said last week, reiterate this week, thank God for those who are serving in our armed forces, the men and women who are keeping us safe. We thank God for them. Some have loved their country to the point of death. Some have loved their wives, their children, even their pets. We talked about how some people have had a heart for animals, that they will take strays in, and any of you in here like that you would take a stray in and nurse it back to health. Why? Because you love animals. There's a great love that motivates you. But here I want to tell you something else too. We can love those things that are appropriate to love and good to love, but we can also love those things that can be very dangerous for us. Those things that God has not approved for us to love. For instance, there is the love of money. Oftentimes when this passage of Scripture is quoted, it is misquoted. 1 Timothy 6 verse 10 says, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil." It doesn't say money is the root of all kinds of evil. It says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It is possible for us to have a self-sacrificing love for money. Have any of you known people who would do anything for money? I mean, I have known people who get all upset working side by side with each other if they find out the person next to them is making more money than they are, doing the same job, and it just absolutely destroys them. So we can have an inappropriate love for things. I would suggest to you that many times when I'm talking to wives and wives-to-be, those who are doing premarital counseling, one of the great complaints that they have of their spouse is that they spend too much time on video games. Is it possible that we have a great love for video games? Maybe a love that we would sacrifice for video games. And you say, Doug, what do you mean by that? We would sacrifice money. We would sacrifice time. How many of you have known people who stay up way late at night, even if they're dog-tired the next day going to work or whatever, to continue to play a video game for hours? Hours. I talked a little bit a couple weeks ago about my love for football when football was back, and especially college football. That's my love. And I talked about how Annette was doing laundry, and she came in with a big handful of clothes that she had just got out of the dryer. She laid them on the love seat. I looked over and said, "Ah, to help fold those." Nah. Kept watching football. That's right. Bad fellow that I am. Any of you ever done that? Had a good intention, didn't follow through because your love for something else moved you differently? See, really, the great question that we're asking today is, what do you love? More importantly, who do you love? Because the one you love, what you love, will be what you serve or who you serve. And see, when we serve others or serve things more than serving Jesus, we're saying we love those things, those people, whatever that is, you fill in the blank, more than we love Jesus. Now, I know you're not physically saying that. But what I'm saying to you is we're saying it by our lives, by our actions. Jesus says to Peter, "Do you love me more than these?" And he doesn't tell us what these are, does he? He just says, "Do you love me more than these?" These could be a lot of things that we could put ahead of Jesus. Well, let's do a little recap here. We found out as we looked at the path of Peter's denial, Peter had a problem. And this was his problem. He put a whole lot more trust in himself and in his flesh than he did in Jesus. And that is always a dangerous situation and position to be in. Peter trusted himself more than he trusted Jesus. He said, "If all others fail you, I will never fail you." Even though Jesus had told him he would deny him 3 times. He says, "You know, Jesus, you know everything about everything except everything about me." But the truth is, Jesus did know everything about him. Peter denied Jesus because Peter had more confidence in Peter than he had in Jesus. And we are told in Scripture to have no confidence in the flesh, but to have complete trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. Before we start getting all high and mighty and thinking how good we are, let us be careful. Peter is the best of us, and if the best of us can fail, then the rest of us can fail and will fail. I use premarital counseling illustrations all the time, but when I'm talking to a couple, I don't say to them, if we have problems in our marriage. I say, when you have problems in your marriage. How many of you in here are married? How many of you have had a marriage where there has never been a problem? I'm still looking. I see some wives trying to get their husbands to raise their hands. No. Truth is, that's not the way it is. Any of you ever had a friendship that there was never a problem with? You can't be around people, imperfect people, who have problems and not have problems. It isn't if you have a problem, it's when you have a problem. How are you going to deal with that problem? Well, Peter was to deny himself, and he did not do that. If anyone wants to come after me, Jesus says he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. This is more than just denying yourself some type of food or drink. It means to give up your right to run your life. You realize what Jesus is really asking, without giving too much detail about it, is he's asking for you to be his slave. Are you serious about that, Doug? I am serious about it. He's asking you to give up everything for him. To take up your cross and follow after him, denying yourself. I don't know how more specific he could be than that. You say, well, Doug, that sounds like he's wanting me to just give up everything for him. Yes, he is. That's what he requires. That's what he asks of us. And you say, well, why in the world would anybody do that? What would compel them? The only thing that will compel them to do something like that is love. See, if you are not passionately in love with the person of Jesus, you will not hang in there till the end. Because nothing else will keep you in it. The devil will throw all kinds of darts at you and problems and issues and all of this stuff. If you are not completely committed to Jesus because of your great love for him, you won't hang in there. What will keep you in it is your passionate love for the man Jesus. See, Peter had decided to go back to fishing. It wasn't the first time he had done that. He had done that several times. You might remember Peter's first calling in the Gospel of Mark. Jesus is walking by the Sea of Galilee and he sees them there fishing and he says, "Come follow me." They left all and followed him. But then we see in Luke chapter 5 that he went back to fishing. Same kind of scenario. He had fished all night, caught no fish. Jesus uses his boat to teach from and then tells Peter, "Launch out." Peter's obedient. He goes out there, he launches out, and he catches more fish than he could ever imagine, had to bring another boat. He looks at Jesus and he says, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man." Which led to about a 3-year ministry where Jesus said to him, "From now on you'll be someone who catches men instead of fish." But guess what? We find at the beginning of chapter 21, Peter's went back to fishing again. And not only had he went back to fishing again, but he had taken other disciples with him. And so we are in a process now of watching Peter's restoration. How Jesus restores Peter back to ministry. And the unique thing about this is, not only does Jesus do that with Peter, but this is how he works with us as well. Our main idea today is this. Restoration with Jesus is made possible because Jesus comes to us, he confronts us about our love for him, and then commissions us to live a life of love. Jesus is pursuing Peter, not Peter pursuing Jesus. I submit to you today, the only reason that you and I are saved folks today is because the Lord Jesus Christ came after us. Had he not have come after us, we would have never found him. Jesus was not lost. We are lost. We need him pursuing us all the time. It is always the strong who go to the weak. We see that in Scripture. While we were still yet sinners, Christ died for the ungodly. But not only will there never be restoration apart from Jesus doing that, and listen to me, folks, I believe he does that for all people. It is God's desire for all people to be saved and to come to a knowledge of the truth. So I believe he's in pursuit of all. But if he wasn't in pursuit of us, we would never find him. We don't have it within us to find him. But when he does find us, you and I then have a responsibility. See, he compels us. But you and I have to be responsive to that compelling of Jesus. We have to cooperate with it. We have to cooperate with our love. And so Jesus is the one who's pursuing Peter. But Jesus is appealing to Peter. And he's appealing to Peter on the basis of love. He says here in this passage of Scripture, when breakfast was over, Jesus said to Simon, he said to Simon Peter. Now, John calls him Simon Peter all the time. I like this because it shows who he was before and who he is in Jesus. Simon Peter. Remember, Jesus gave him the name Peter. But notice how Jesus speaks to Simon. Jesus said to Simon Peter, John says, "Simon, son of Jonah," or son of John. He doesn't call him Peter here, does he? He uses his old name because Peter's went back to his old lifestyle, hasn't he? And so he says to him, he says, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Do you love me is the question Jesus asked. What Jesus doesn't say, I believe, speaks volumes as well. Jesus could have said to Peter at this point, Peter, have you learned your lesson? Huh? Think of all your parently ways that you would work with your kids. I told you this was going to happen, didn't I? Are you going to listen to me from now on? Let me ask you this, Peter. Are you going to do it again? How many times are you going to act like this? Don't you know better? Use your parent thoughts. Think about it. Jesus doesn't say that, does he? What he says to him is he says to him, Peter, do you love me more than these? Love is a powerful motivator. If we love Jesus, we will follow Jesus. We follow those things we love. We serve those things we love. We must remember it isn't if I fail, it's when I fail. And when I fail, Christ is right there to restore and to forgive. And we need to cooperate with him, but he is there for us. The Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, talking about love, he said it is our love for the Lord that controls us or constrains us. It compels us. What is it that causes me to do the things that I do? It is my love for Jesus that causes me to do it, says Paul. See, the Bible never calls us to a life of legalism. Follow these laws and you'll be set free. The Bible never calls us to a life of dread or a life of fear. The Bible calls us, though, to a life of love. This is why when asked what is the greatest command, Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. This will satisfy the requirements that God has. However, we must hear all that Jesus asked of Peter. Jesus said, do you love me more than these? More than these. He doesn't tell us what the these are here, whether it's the fish, whether it's the disciples. And I think we can't be dogmatic about it, but these could be anything. So the question is still today for us, isn't it? Do you love me more than these? Well, what are the these for us? Could be a lot of things. Do you love me more than your education? Do you love me more than your job? Do you love me more than your money? Do you love me more than... You fill in the blank. Do you love me more than? Yes, without a doubt, I believe Jesus wants your love for him to exceed all the other loves in your life. But I'm not quite sure that's exactly what he's saying. Notice Peter's response to Jesus. You know I love you. But he doesn't say that I love you more than these. And Jesus accepts that. See, I really believe at this point, Peter is a broken man. Peter is not only messed up and made a mistake, I think Peter would tell you at this point, he is messed up. There's a world of difference between the two. It isn't just that I've made a mistake, but I am messed up. I need help. See, before, if you would have went back to before the Garden of Gethsemane, I believe wholeheartedly Peter would have answered differently to this. Do you love me, Peter? Well, you know I love you, Lord. And there's a Greek play on words here that we've talked about. Jesus is saying a word that is similar to or a form of the word agape. He's saying, do you love me with a sacrificial love, a love of God? Peter responds by saying, you know, and he uses a different word, a word that is part of phileo. It means brotherly love. We get the city of Philadelphia from that. He says, I love you like a friend. I love you like a brother, is what he says. But see, I'll tell you, Peter, if you would have went back before the Garden of Gethsemane, before all of this transpired, if Jesus would have asked him, do you agape me, do you love me with a self-sacrificing love, Peter would have said, yes, I don't care if the rest of these guys fail you. I will never fail you. Never. Peter isn't saying that anymore. Peter's saying, Lord, and he drops it a notch. Lord, I love you, and you know I love you. You know that I love you. Peter's a broken man. Jesus accepts his statement and then says to him, feed my lambs. Jesus moves Peter from a focus from himself to the focus of others. Did you know that truly the best way out of a spiritual slump is to get your focus off of yourself and to get your focus on others? That's the best way to get out of a spiritual slump. We need to get our minds off of ourselves and get it on the kingdom and get it on the things that God wants us to do. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be taken care of for you, added unto you. Now see, I want you to know that I'm fearful at this point that you may be hearing something that I'm not saying, and so I want to clarify exactly what I'm saying. Now, God's appeal to us is on the basis of love first and foremost. This is the prerequisite to restoration. Do you love Jesus is the question. But it's one thing to say that without love for Jesus, nothing else matters, and that's true. But it's quite something else to say, love is all that matters. Because that would not be true. We tend to look at love like having some sentimental, emotional experience that brings us great feelings of warmth, but never moves us to serve Jesus. And so I could see you sitting there right now thinking to yourself, I'd love to hear you say that, Preacher Doug, because the truth is, I do love Jesus. And I'm very encouraged by that. Well, I'm encouraged to hear that you love Jesus too. But did you notice that wasn't all he said to him? That it was more than that. We tend to look at love as like having some sentimental, emotional experience with great feelings of warmth. But is that true biblical love? The true love that Jesus talks about in Scripture is more than that. John speaks about it like this. He says, my little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. He says it happens in action. Love is certainly the starting point for our restoration to the Lord, but there must also be a willingness to live in that love for the Lord. I want to tell you something. If you're a husband that says you love your wife, but you beat your wife every day, you are a liar. Are you serious, Pastor? I am dead serious. See, somehow or another, if we think we're coming in here and having a kumbaya moment, and I felt good for a moment here, oh, I just love Jesus. I really love him as a baby. I love that baby Jesus. I love coming at Christmas. And it's just making me feel warm and fuzzy and all of these things. And, oh, I leave here and, yeah, I know I fail. That happens every once in a while. But, you know, I love Jesus. I'm all about Jesus. You know what? Jesus has a whole lot of fans and not very many followers. What he's calling us to is something more. He says, do you love me, Peter? Peter says, yes, I love you, Lord. He says, feed my sheep. Do you love me, Peter? Yes, I love you. Tend my sheep. Do you love me, Peter? You know everything, Lord. I love you. Feed my sheep. And then he goes to tell him something that I think was both encouraging to Peter at the same time shocking. He said, you know what? You're a young guy, Pete. And right now, he said, all you're concerned about is what you're going to wear. What do I need to wear for the day? He said, but there's going to come a time when that'll change. He said, there's going to come a time when you'll not stretch out your own arms. Someone else is going to stretch them out. And they're going to take you somewhere you don't want to go. It won't be a freely kind of thing. Any of you ever felt like as you got older, some of your freedom was gone? How many of you felt that way when you got kids? Woo, man! That changes life, doesn't it? Here's the truth, isn't it? The truth is, he says to Peter, you're going to glorify me by being crucified like me. The truth is that Peter had asked him before, he said, Lord, where are you going that I can't go? Jesus said, you can't go right now, but you will go. You will go. This is the will go. And so you can almost picture in your mind what's transpiring here. Ty and Keith, come on up. You can almost picture that as Jesus is saying this, Peter just kind of starts to follow Jesus. And then he happens to notice someone else. Right? And he said, what about this guy? Isn't that Peter? Don't you love him? Isn't he a piece of work? He's a project, isn't he? But that's all of us, isn't it? What about this guy? And he says, if I will that he stays and remains till I come back again, what's that to you? Follow me. Please stand. Jesus calls us to a life of love that follows him. Not only willing to die for him, but more than that, willing to live for him. This morning, maybe nobody's asked you this question before, but I'm asking it now. Are you willing to live for him? Not just one big moment at the end where you're going to die for him, but are you willing to live for him? You say, well, what does that mean? Well, it means this. Are you willing to love him more than anything else in this life? That's a deep question, isn't it? But that is the question today. He leaves us with that question. Do you love me? This morning, if we can help you in any way to answer that question, won't you come while we stand and sing together? Ty?
We are going to be starting in 3 minutes. 3-minute warning.